Let's get to the elections because there are actually three elections of significance today, and you probably only know about one of them. I'm going to talk about the one that you do know about in a few moments. But there are also two other presidential elections today that were held in the world, at least of a significance. One of them was in on the African continent, Benin. In Benin, there were elections tonight for the presidential election. The results, I don't think, have been fully through counted yet, so I won't talk as much about that, but I will talk about African affairs on another live. The second presidential election of some significance today took place in Peru. That was an election with at least 35 different presidential candidates running, if you can believe that, with a high turnout because it's mandatory to vote in Peru. The elections there, the results there have not been finalized or finished either. And I'm sure, I said earlier there'd be a runoff, and I'm going to be looking to be absolutely correct about that. And I said incorrectly earlier that it was going to be a runoff in May. The runoff is actually going to happen in June in Peru because nobody's going to get 50% plus of the results in the Peruvian election. With 35 different presidential candidates, that simply won't happen. So there's going to be a runoff, I guess, between the top two, whoever those two are, and then they'll run off in June, not May, as I said earlier. Now, here's the third election, of course, is the one I'm going to talk about here tonight, this evening, for a few minutes. So thank you again for coming on. And the election I'm going to talk about tonight that you already know about is the one that took place in Hungary. A major election, a landslide election for the new prime minister, who will be Peter Magyar. Magyar, Magyar. I'm sorry, Peter Magyar. Peter Magyar. His party, the TISZA party, TISZA, the TISZA party, are going to be in power in the next, I guess, whenever, a few weeks or whenever it's going to be, when they actually officially get sworn into the parliament. It was a parliamentary election tonight. So that meant that the whole parliament was being voted on. What you need to know about this election is its significance. Now, Hungary is a country that has borders with a number of other countries, including Ukraine. And I can guarantee you tonight that Ukraine and the leader of Ukraine, Zelensky, will be the happiest people on earth. Pretty much. The happiest people on earth are going to be people in Ukraine right now. And the other happiest people on earth are going to be the EU, the European Union. And listen, let me tell you, most of Europe is going to be thrilled to bits about this victory. And it was a landslide victory. And to understand the significance of this, in the Hungarian parliament, there are a total of 199 seats. 199. Tonight, with projections and estimates, with over 94% of the vote already in, TISZA, TISZA, that party, which is only 5 years old, is poised to win out of those 199 seats, at least 138 of them. That is a supermajority, hence a landslide. That means the TISZA party is going to win close to 70%, 70% of the total number of seats in the Hungarian parliament. That's an astonishing figure. And I'll explain who the TISZA party is. I'm also going to explain who Viktor Orban's party is. I'll explain all that in a few moments to you. To give you an idea of the significance of this result, not only is there going to be that super majority that happened, and Viktor Orban, the dictator, the white Christian nationalist, the white nationalist, the racist, he has already called Peter Magyar to concede the election to him. But the significance of this win also is the following. In Hungary, there was a record turnout. More than 6 million people are estimated to have voted in Hungary. Now, Hungary is not, it is not this hugely populated country. I mean, it's got lots of people in it. But 6 million voters is the highest turnout since 1988. So you're talking about a nearly 40-year high in voter turnout in a parliamentary election, in any election. That is huge. So keep smashing the hearts. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in depth and what this really means. Obviously, what it means is a certain redirection of Hungary, which for 16 years, folks, for the last 16 years was under the vice grip of a racist, of a Christian nationalist, of a dictator named Viktor Orban, who was consolidating and solidifying with Russia, who was absolutely genuflecting to Russia, whom Trump was kissing up to and kissing up, and he was kissing up to Trump, whom Steve Bannon loved to romanticize. People like Elon Musk, J.D. Vance was over there with Viktor Orban just literally a week ago. This is a massive defeat for Donald Trump, for J.D. Vance, and all these other white racists. It's a massive defeat for the Elon Musks of the world and all of these white racist parties across Europe, including in the UK, the Reform Party, led by Nigel Farage, another white nationalist party. People like Wilders of the white racist in the Netherlands, and the AFD in Germany, led by Alice Weidel, and all these, and also Marine Le Pen in France. And I don't know if she's been allowed to run yet for the 2027 election or not in France. But Marine Le Pen's party, the Rapport National Party, the National Party, National Assembly Party, I think they're called in France, they're white wing and racist. Those folks, big defeat for them. So you have to understand how massive this victory was. And Gilda Johnson writes, if only we could do that here in the United States. Oh, yeah, I know. And I'm going to get into this election a bit more. Don asks, will Hungary dissolve their current right-wing media empire and root out the sycophants? That remains to be seen, Don. We will see. But I want to tell you that Peter Magyar, who is the head of the Tisza party, is going to become prime minister. He ran on a platform of eliminating corruption. He wanted to get it out. In fact, in his victory speech tonight, I gave you some of the celebration I posted here on my Substack. You can look at that. They were celebrating to Queen's "We Are the Champions" up out there in Budapest. One of the things that Peter Magyar and the Tisza party ran on in this election was to root out corruption, was to get rid of all of this nonsense that was infecting Hungary and all this nationalism that was really poisoning the country. What Tisza is a populist right wing, people say center right, but I would say a right wing party that's rooted in conservative populism and the idea that they believe in taking money from grassroots donors. The Tisza party is only 5 years old. The Tisza party was taking its donations not from the state, not from corporate entities, but from grassroots donors. A conservative, populist, right wing, I would say, right wing party. They're only 5 years old. And Peter Magyar tonight said that he wants to make sure that Viktor Orban, in these final weeks, or whatever it is, final weeks of his reign in power, does not do anything to screw up the mechanism for the incoming parliament. He made that very vocal tonight and very public tonight. So he has made it clear. And to Don's question, at least Peter Magyar has made it very clear that between now and the time that Peter Magyar and the Tisza party assume power, that Viktor Orban cannot and must not do any funny business or any monkey business with the mechanisms in Hungary that would make it harder for Magyar and the Tisza party, when they rule, to do what they need to do. Now, I don't know if Viktor Orban, as a dictator of 16 years, is gonna be held to that, or if he's gonna behave himself. I don't know that I'm very optimistic about that. But I can say that that is what Peter Magyar said in his speech tonight. He also said, you also heard the people of Budapest. There were probably 100,000 people there, if not more, who were supporting and cheering, who voted for the Tisza party, who said, Russians go home. Literally, they were chanting, Russians go home, Russians go home. This is no joke. This is really one of the historic victories in Hungary. It truly is. And people are partying. If you go and look on Reuters, there's a live feed from Reuters. I don't know if they're still carrying it, but before I came on here, people were partying in the streets, waving the Hungarian flag, saying no more Putin. I mean, this country of Hungary is finally breathing again after 16 years of dictatorship. Peter Magyar is only 45 years old. He is a relative political neophyte. He has only been in the European Parliament, a member of the EU, the European Parliament in the EU. He's only been a member for 2 years. He's an attorney. Um, he's a pretty, I would say he's a neophyte in politics. You have to really understand what this is. This is a younger, more, as they say, upstart, some people say, political figure who is beloved by a lot of the younger set, who got a lot of young voters. Hello, United States. Hello, young people. Gotta vote. Gotta vote. I don't want to hear anyone again ever say that voting doesn't matter. Because if voting matters in Hungary, it sure as hell matters here in the United States. Okay? So let's get off this nonsense where you hear people on social media going, oh, voting doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it damn well does matter. Ask the United States Supreme Court if voting doesn't matter or not. You ask the Supreme Court if voting matters. Our lives are determined, literally in this country, shaped by what the Supreme Court votes on and how it votes on it. So I don't want to hear another person tell me or tell you that voting does not count. Because it does. As I said, ask the United States Supreme Court. And if voting counts for them, it sure as hell counts for you. And if it counts in Hungary, it counts for you. Because young people, there was a coalition, younger people made it very clear what they wanted. And I'm telling you, Magyar tonight was saying things that was music to the EU's ears. You had the president of France, Macron, who's going to be leaving next year. Outgoing president saying, you know what, we embrace Magyar, and Macron's party is center left, more centrist party. Magyar he's called center right, but I'd say he's right wing conservative populist. And you had Macron on X and all the other places singing his praises. I think France was one of the most relieved countries on the planet beyond Ukraine. Why? Because next year, as I alluded to earlier, there are parliamentary elections in France, or presidential election in France. And I don't know at this point, I'm not sure that the French courts have ruled on whether Marine Le Pen will be able to run or not. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe someone can tell me. But this thing is so significant in Hungary because France is extremely happy about this. Germany and the coalition there with Friedrich Merz. What did the Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany do tonight? One of the first things he did was call up Magyar, put out a statement. Oh, Magyar, Hungary, congratulations. We welcome. All of these people in Europe are relieved. And I tell you who's relieved. I told you already, right? Zelensky is hugely relieved by this. Do you know that there were posters of Zelensky all over Hungary? You would have thought he was running in these parliamentary elections for prime minister. You would have thought he was running. But basically, Zelensky was running. Zelensky was essentially running in Hungary throughout this campaign, even though Magyar didn't necessarily invoke Ukraine because it's a thorny issue for some. And he didn't perhaps want to be painted as somebody who was going to necessarily, quote unquote, kiss up to Zelensky. I think that will happen. I think he will be a friend to Zelensky. I think he will. I really think he will be a friend to Zelensky. And I do think that while we know that Magyar, and he said this tonight, that he's a friend of Europe, he's pro-Europe, he is not pro-Putin at all, he can't stand Putin. This is a major election victory. Tracy Farmer asks, "What's the difference with this new man? Is he a hard right populist?" I wouldn't say he's hard right populist, but I would say he's a right wing conservative populist. Maybe there's me splitting hairs with that, Tracy. But he's somebody who is someone who is a populist, but he is on the right wing. But you see, the thing is, Tracy, and everybody else watching, right, is that the right wing in Hungary is not necessarily the same as the right wing in the United States. Is not necessarily the same as the right wing in the United Kingdom. Is not necessarily the same as the right wing in Germany. I mean, yeah, there are commonalities, but there are also differences. But this is a really, really big thing. And I want to just give you um, a really, really important bearing here. The Fidesz party, which is the losing party tonight in Hungary. This is the party run by Viktor Orban. This party, the Fidesz, Fidesz, I think that's how you pronounce it. This party is a party that's almost 40 years old in Hungary. Was founded in 1988. Viktor Orban, the dictator, was one of the founders of the party. What's interesting about Fidesz, fellow viewer, and thank you for being here. Please subscribe to my Substack. Please be a paid subscriber because it has its benefits, and paid subscribers have been receiving those benefits on a weekly basis. Or be a free subscriber if you cannot afford to be a paid one. I welcome that. Please hit the hearts. Thank you very much for doing that. But the Fidesz party, Fidesz, is a party that was founded in 1988. Viktor Orban was one of the founders. And what's interesting about the Fidesz party is that the Fidesz party did not start out as a right-wing party, as a hard right party, as a white nationalist party. It actually started out as a progressive, so-called progressive left-wing type party. That changed in the early 2000s. In fact, it really essentially changed in 2006. When what the Fidesz party did was coalesced with the Christian Nationalist Party in Hungary. When they won the election in 2006, the Christian Nationalists and the Fidesz party, which was still fairly liberal, coalesced for a coalition. And then in the 2010 parliamentary election in Hungary, what happened is the Fidesz party became more and more right-wing. In fact, leading up to that election in 2010, the Fidesz party was much more right-wing, much more nationalist, racist, all the rest of it. So what happened with the Fidesz party is it then assumed power in 2010. Viktor Orban, who founded the party, became the prime minister. And Fidesz, with its majority, was a hard right, racist, white nationalist party. They dominated for 16 years. Very important. And I see people talking about the folks in here who have convinced people in the family to vote. That's really important. And Dawn, well done with that. And voting is the key. Voting is the critical key in all over the world, but particularly in these elections that you're seeing here. Now, some places like Russia, hey, you know where that vote's going. But in a whole load of countries, it's so important to vote. And why the United States chooses not to do so, at least some people, some young people choose, well, not to vote. Why? We need to have voting as a national conversation. We need to have voting as a cultural event in this country. We need to have voting be a national holiday in this country. Every election day in the major elections, whether the midterms or the presidentials, need to be a national holiday. That needs to be an amendment in the Constitution as far as I'm concerned. So you've got places in the South where they have Robert E. Lee Day, celebrating a racist, celebrating a loser, celebrating a traitor. I mean, if they can have a friggin' Robert E. Lee Day in some of these southern states, damn, we should be having a national holiday for voting. Now, In Australia, it's a mandatory thing to vote. In Peru, it's mandatory to vote. In Australia, you can be fined and possibly jailed if you do not vote. In Peru, everybody has to vote. The election in Peru tonight. People, 27 million people are registered to vote in Peru. Between the ages of 18 and 70, it is mandatory for every Peruvian to vote. And there are about 1.2 million people who don't live in Peru but are tied to Peru who vote. But it's mandatory to vote in Peru. Please keep hitting the hearts. Thank you very much. It really is appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe to yours truly here on Substack. If you appreciate the work and the commentary here and the analysis of the elections in Hungary, please do subscribe to my Substack here. Thank you. And please be a paid subscriber if you can. A few dollars will be greatly appreciated. There's lots more things to come for paid subscribers and to subscribers overall. So please keep it tuned here. But this is such an important victory tonight. The Fidesz party consolidated their grip on power for 16 years. And during the course of that time, fellow viewer, you had Hungary becoming far more right-wing, far more racist, far more xenophobic, far more Putin-centric, far more groveling and kissing up to Putin, far more allied with oh my gosh, the other dictator that's nearby, and I've forgotten the name of the country. Begins with a B as well, but I just can't remember their name. It's just so frustrating to me. Belarus. You had Hungary kissing up to Belarus and their dictator there. This is a significant result. It really is. Poland also are another country that are supremely relieved tonight. Poland is one of the happiest countries in the world right now. Donald Tusk, who became the prime minister of Poland last year, I believe it was. Donald Tusk, who used to be the president of the European Union. Donald Tusk tonight in Poland is drinking a lot of vodka, probably drinking brandy as well, probably having a shot of cognac. I mean, you think I'm joking? It's late at night in Poland right now, and I'm telling you now, Donald Tusk is doing a dance. Might be a drunken dance, but he's doing a dance out there in Poland. Because why? He now has some consolidation. He has a buttress against a lot of the stuff that was going on in and around him and the countries around Poland. So this is a big, big win tonight. The people of Hungary have done a major service to Europe, to the EU, to Vladimir Zelensky, and to all of that region. Now, look, here's another thing. The reality, right? The reality is this, folks, is that, let me tell you something, right? You're also, Viktor Orban is going to be the opposition leader. And even though the TISDA party has got this supermajority, it's not been officially finalized yet, but this is a massive win. Even though TISDA and Peter Magyar have this supermajority, again, it's about 70% of the seats. That's like the Democratic Party here in the United States, literally winning around 320 or so of the 425 or 435 seats. I mean, it was that big a victory for Hungary and the TISDA party tonight. It's a significant victory. And even though Viktor Orban is the opposition leader and he's going to be out of power, and we hope he does leave, I think he will leave. You notice how quickly the EU has coalesced around TISDA and Peter Magyar. And I do believe Viktor Orban will leave. But remember, he is still in the fabric of the politics in Hungary. And he will still have those alliances with Donald Trump, with Steve Bannon, with J.D. Vance, with the billionaire class, with Putin. But he just won't have the same level of power that he had. He won't be in power, but he will still be a part of the political landscape in Hungary. So that is a cautionary tale that you've got to keep in mind here. Very, very important. And thank you for hitting the hearts. So don't forget, It's a great victory tonight. It's a victory that should please everybody who really cares about having actual real democracy and real justice and a real sense of a shifting of the tectonic plates in the regions in Europe. It's a very big victory for all the people who care about having justice, actual real justice, and actual real democracy, and not some fad, but some real democracy for every human being, including people who look like me, people who may look like you. This is a massive victory tonight. But remember, that doesn't mean that the Fidesz party is going to stop planning and stop plotting. They're not going to stop planning and plotting. But the great news is that when they get into power, whenever that's going to be, because I didn't get the exact dates of when that's going to happen. It should be in a few days or a few weeks, perhaps, or whatever it is. But we have a new prime minister in Hungary, and he's pro-Europe, even if he may not be explicitly pro-Ukraine. He's pro-Europe, pro-EU. The EU is quickly consolidating around him. There's, 26 or 25, 26 or 27 countries in the EU. Many of them have already sent out messages as I speak and before I've spoken tonight, congratulating Tisza and Peter Magyar. It's incredible. He's practically a political novice. In some ways, he's kind of like Mark Carney in Canada. Mark Carney had never held any political office, ever held any political office until he became Prime Minister of Canada last year. It's remarkable. Mark Carney had been working for the Bank of England. He was doing a lot of things at the Bank of England. He'd been he's a millionaire or billionaire, or he's very rich anyway. Mark Carney, a centrist, right? Conservative type centrist. And then he got this political power for the Liberal Party in Canada, which had been on the ropes last year. Donald Trump was telling everybody, don't bother with the Liberal Party, okay? Forget them, as far as I remember. And everybody, of course, ignored Donald Trump because he usually gets it wrong when he endorses the other party. It's the kiss of death for them. You know, he's endorsed pretty much everybody, and a lot of the people he's endorsed have ended up not only losing, but having their asses handed to them. JD Vance was over there last week, and Trump was endorsing Orban, Trump kissing his back. You know, Orban and Trump are like this. And his ass got waxed tonight in Hungary. So this is a big defeat for Trump as well. And I hope that there will be a ripple effect around this. You've got a number of elections coming up over the next few days and weeks in other parts of Europe and around the world, and you do hope that something like this signals some really good things for the EU and Europe in general, because it makes a huge difference. This will send a lot of signals. I'm sure that Ukraine will love this. They will go and meet, I'm sure, with Magyar as soon as he gets situated. You can bet Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor, as I mentioned earlier. You can bet President Macron of France. You can bet the EU president, Ursula von der Leyen. I think she's the EC president, European Commission. The EC president or Ursula von der Leyen, who, by the way, just 2 months ago was out in China or out in India making deals with the dictator there, Modi. Because what people do not understand, BRICS, right? BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and the S, South Korea, I guess it is. BRICS. That is the economic foundation of the future. The United States of America is not part of this anymore. And people really have to understand that because Donald Trump has taken a sledgehammer to this country, and Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation have taken a sledgehammer to this country is pretty much economically irrelevant around the world now. We are getting to that place. The economy here sucks. It stinks, right? Inflation at 3.3% now. You got your gas prices through the roof, your energy prices through the roof, and with this failure in this failed war, right, in Iran, prices are through the roof everywhere with the oil, and it's going to affect us here. And all these countries in Europe are making deals with India and China. That's what they're doing. They are looking out for themselves down the road. They're playing the chess match. You have the UK, Sir Keir Starmer from my native country, right? He went over to China a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, making deals. It was just so ridiculous. Donald Trump talking about, we made deals, we made deals. What deals did you make? The real deals that are actually happening economically on this planet are with the UK going out to China, with Macron going out to China, with Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada going out to China. They've all gone this year. All three of them have gone to China. The EU president or EC president, Ursula von der Leyen, making a visit to India, doing deals there. All of these countries are making deals. They're looking at the handwriting on the wall here. And as someone pointed out just now, I forgot the name of the person who just said this. Yeah, Russia and Iran are getting richer thanks to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has strengthened the hand of dictators across the world. Now, Orban, he's actually weakened his hand by endorsing him. But listen, this was not, because people don't take kindly when Donald Trump, who is not liked around the world except by billionaires and thieves, right? And extremely corrupt people. When Donald Trump tells Hungary, you need to vote for the dictator who has been essentially oppressing you for the last 16 years, that ain't going to go over too well. Donald Trump does not have the cachet to be telling people this. Now, someone like Biden, I don't know if he does. Obama probably does have, not probably, Obama has more cachet. It's not even a fair fight, right? Remember, Barack Obama, when he was candidate Obama in 2008, went to Berlin and he drew millions of people in the streets of Berlin in Germany. And he gave a speech that went around the world. Go and look it up. You can go on YouTube. Look at that speech. And John McCain, when he ran against him, was fuming. They didn't like it. These Republicans were pissed. Obama, and they were calling it a rock star tour, and he's the one, and anointed. I mean, they hated this. And now look at them bowing down and kissing up to an orange, felonious piece of garbage, an orange god, so to speak. And they're treating him, Donald Trump, like he's the one. The hypocrisy and the contradictions, right? They just never end. But you remember in 2000, and many of you do if you're of a certain age, or even if you're not of a certain age, surely you do remember in 2008, Obama, when he was Senator Obama, candidate Obama, gave this massive ass speech in Berlin, Germany. And the crowds were in literally, it was about probably 1 million plus people. If that guy, President Obama, was in power now, and he said to Hungary, vote for the Tis the Party, I think a lot of people in Hungary would have voted for the Tis the Party. The Tis the Party. Because Obama, and he's not perfect, none of these people are, right? But Obama has a level of cachet and gravitas. He even won a Nobel Peace Prize, which I don't think he really deserved. I think if you go and ask Obama privately, I think he's publicly said he didn't deserve it, but he got it. It was more of a symbolic gesture to President Barack Obama. And this guy in the White House now will never get a Nobel Peace Prize. He'll get a Nobel War Prize, but not a Nobel Peace Prize. The closest thing he will get to any peace is that phony-ass Board of Peace with all these dictators and crooks on it, like Javier Milei in Argentina. Or as I call them, the Board of Peace, and I spell board B-O-R-E-D, because they don't want peace. They want turmoil. The same Javier Milei, who now got $40 billion, $40 billion from the United States, our taxpayer money. So what I'm saying here collectively, folks, is that it's not a good idea for Donald Trump here to be saying to Hungary, Go and vote for the dictator who has been dictating and ruling over you for 16 years. That did not go well in Hungary, especially with the younger folk in Hungary. Ah, no, they didn't take too kindly to that because they didn't like Donald Trump anyway. And the things that they were chanting tonight in Budapest, oh my gosh, you don't have to be a speaker of Hungarian. You don't have to speak any kind of Hungarian or anything like that to know. People wanted their freedom, their autonomy. And this was a really welcome move tonight. And the geopolitical implications here are very important. Very, very important. And you have to understand, it may get underreported in the corporate news media in the United States, but if you look to places like France 24, which has an English language 24-hour a day live English language channel broadcasting from France. If you look at places like DW in Germany, which has an English language news station online, you can type in DW Germany and you'll get that live English language Germany. They report on this a lot more forensically and they actually do cover because look, all the news bureaus in these corporate news networks, these foreign language bureaus, these foreign countries, these overseas countries bureaus, the news bureaus in those countries have been closed. These corporate news media companies are literally closing or have already closed news bureaus all over the world. Now, you will get news reporting done by some corporate news media on location at some of these places around the world, but you won't actually have a bureau necessarily where people are reporting from inside some kind of building somewhere. And if you do get that, it's significantly scaled down. And we need news now than ever. And thank you, Tanya, for Tanya of the 92% talking about. She talked about Der Spiegel, which is a German newspaper, is on Substack. That's really good to know. Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that, Tanya of the 92%. Please hit the hearts. Please subscribe to yours truly. It would be greatly appreciated. So this is the significance. This is a very important victory tonight in Hungary. You have these two parties. You have a party called the Tisza Party, Tisza, which is going to end up getting 139, maybe 140, maybe even more than that of the 199 total seats in the Hungarian parliament. That's a massive, massive victory. That's a supermajority. That's close to 70%, 70% supermajority. That's a landslide win. It's a historic win. And I sincerely hope that Peter Magyar and the Tisza Party are able to get all of these reforms done. And they need to really strike while the iron is hot. Thank you, Tanya, for being a paid subscriber. I do appreciate that. Please follow Tanya's lead and become a paid subscriber. There are lots of great benefits that paid subs get. There's going to be some more to come this evening for paid subscribers. So I've already given away 3 books today for paid subscribers, including, I'm just looking at them over here, Vice President Harris's book, 107 Days, which is a #1 New York Times bestseller. I gave away 2 copies of this today. I also gave away a book called Black Out Loud, which I have over here as well. Black Out Loud. This book by Jeff Bennett. This is a brand new book from the PBS NewsHour reporter and anchor, Jeff Bennett. He's here on Substack as well. Jeff R. Bennett. Jeff and the letter R, and then his last name, as you can see here, Bennett. He's on Substack as well. Please subscribe to him. So thank you, Tanya, for being a paid subscriber. Thank you so very much indeed for that. It's very welcome. Please follow the lead of Tanya of the 92%. So look, I just want to tell you to close up here in the next few moments. This victory tonight means so much for Europe. I just hope, as I said a few moments ago, that the Tisza Party and Peter Magyar are able to push through as much as they can. They have to wield power here. And listen, Orban did it with an iron fist for 16 years. And what Peter Magyar and the Tisza Party has to do, and when they get in, is do all these things and really make it stick. You have a supermajority here. You have a political mandate. You know, you have Donald Trump talking about, oh, I've got political capital. Ooh, ooh, I've got a mandate. No, he didn't. You didn't have a mandate, mate. But this guy does in Hungary. Peter Magyar has a mandate. He has a political mandate. He has a lot of political capital. George W. Bush once famously said, I've got political capital and I intend to spend it. And he really didn't have that much political capital, George W. Bush, but he spent some of it. Now, the Republican Party in the United States, they know how to wield power and they know how to wield it ruthlessly. You got Mitch McConnell when he was in power in the US Senate doing some really, really ruthless things, holding open seats, holding open Supreme Court seats. And even though I really wish Obama did not pick Merrick Garland, and I really wish that Joe Biden did not put Merrick Garland in as the Attorney General, what I'm saying is that people really did become really, really clear about power. Republicans wield power ruthlessly. Democrats, if they get in this November, will have to learn to do the very same thing. And so tonight, Peter Magyar, and I agree with someone who just said that George W. belongs in The Hague. Absolutely, he does. I totally agree with that comment. Sorry, I didn't catch who said it. I just saw it out the corner of my eye. He absolutely belongs in The Hague. So does this guy, who is currently in the White House. McConnell, yeah, Kenny Shepard writes, McConnell is the worst. Turtle-headed MFer. Turtle-headed MFer. Yeah, he's horrible. And Annabelle, thank you for that comment that you made about George W. belonging in The Hague. I agree with you, Annabelle. Totally agree. And the Democrats are going to have to learn how to wield power. In Hungary tonight, I really do hope, and again, Peter Magyar is a political novice, literally. And the party that he is the head of, Tis the Party, is literally only 5 years old. It's a young party, conservative popular party. So it's really essential that Peter Magyar, who's only 45 years old, he just had his 45th birthday last month. He's a young guy. Orban's quite a bit, a considerable bit older than he is. But what you need is fresh leadership. The point is tonight is that the people of Hungary wanted fresh leadership, energetic, dynamic leadership. And I'm not saying that older people can't deliver that, because there's some people in their 80s who are still very spry and very energetic. Look at Bernie Sanders. He's like 84, 85, 86. But he looks like he still looks and sounds as if he's 60. Got a lot of energy in him, Bernie does. So there are some people who are older who do have that. Then there are people who are older in their 80s plus who aren't really very energetic and spry and don't really have that same kind of focus. But Peter Magyar in Hungary is only 45 years old. I'm not trying to make this really an ageist thing at all. I'm just saying that the people of Hungary tonight wanted change. They had 16 years of a dictatorial thug ruling in Hungary. And some people were wondering if the guy would ever leave. And when he does finally leave, in the next few weeks or the next few months, whatever it is, and I believe he will, I pray he will, I believe he will, Peter Magyar has an opportunity to really, really reshape Hungary for the next 4 years until the next parliamentary election. And I think with a landslide like this, he probably gets at least 2 terms in office. And if people continue to vote for this party, depending on course on what they do, and thank you, Kenny Shepard. Thank you very much, Kenny. Thank you very much for the kind words. I'm going to do that. Thank you. Keep up the great work, he says. Keep up the great work, sir. Thank you, Kenny. And be well. Have a good night to you. I'm going to be closing this in about 5 minutes, I promise, because it is Sunday evening and I know you want to get back to your regularly scheduled programming on a Sunday evening before going into the office tomorrow or from working from home tomorrow, whichever you do. Or if you just, are just going to be off tomorrow, if you just, no matter what your situation is. I just want to say that Magyar has a real opportunity here. If he gets these things that he wants to get done done, and with a supermajority in parliament, he should, you could possibly really reshape Hungary for not just these next 4 years, but for at least a generation or two. It's going to take time because, again, you've had 16 years. Annabelle writes, neither Orban nor Chump, Chump, she writes, will leave willingly, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a possibility of that. Certainly Orban. I put it this way, Annabelle, I think that you probably have a stronger likelihood that Orban does leave and leave willingly than you will Trump. I think that's a fairly safe prediction. But I hear what you're saying 100%. And we know that Orban has formally conceded and caught and spoken to or communicated in some way tonight with Peter Magyar. But the proof will be in the pudding. The proof will be in the pudding when it actually happens, right? We'll believe it when we actually see it, right? When we see Peter Magyar being sworn in the next few weeks or whenever it's going to be, then we'll really believe that Orban's left. But Orban, again, as I said earlier, folks, he may be leaving power, but he is still in the opposition party to the Tis the party. He is still in the Fidesz party as the opposition leader. So Peter Magyar and Tisza, Tisza, have a lot of work to do, and they really have to push through their mandate, and they have to get all these things done: the anti-corruption, the anti-Putin stuff. They're bonding back with Europe, bonding back with the EU, and I think they'll get a lot of support from the EU. I think that's safe to say. There's no question about it. When you've got Macron of France, you've got the German Chancellor Merz, you've got Ursula von der Leyen of the EC, European Commission, all of these entities rushing publicly. They're not stupid here, folks. They're sending a signal not only to the world, but they're really sending a signal to two people, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. That's what they're doing, folks. These folks who jumped out there tonight on X, on these platforms, they sent a huge signal to Donald Trump and to Vladimir Putin. Those two people. And obviously Zelensky as well. Zelensky's very, Zelensky's sipping on champagne tonight. I've not heard anything regarding Maloney yet. That is a great question. I thought I saw who, I'm not sure who asked that question. Tracy Farmer, anything from Maloney? I have not read anything yet on Maloney. I've not seen it come across the wires. It will be very interesting to see what Giorgia Maloney does, because remember, she is the head of a fascist party, a party called the Brotherhood of Italy. And this party has fascist roots and roots all the way back to Mussolini. And also, as an aside, in Italy, it is much harder to get citizenship now in Italy. Even if you have Italian lineage, in your bloodline, in your lineage, if you have Italian roots and you're in the United States or in other parts of Europe or other parts of the world at large, it's been made harder. Maloney has made it harder for you to get citizenship in Italy. Oh yeah, Financial Times did a big story on this back in, I think, February of this year. Much harder for you to get citizenship. Brittany writes, yup, I was able to get citizenship before they changed it, and I was too late. Can you say that again? You said you were able to get citizenship before they changed it, and you said that you were too late? So I'm not clear, Brittany, if you're saying that you got citizenship in Italy or you didn't get it. If you can clear that up for me, and I'll relay it to everyone, because I'm personally unclear on what you're saying. So if you can tell me that again, tell us again in the chat, Brittany, and I'll read it out. So Georgia Maloney, as you know, look, she goes, yes. Brittany writes, yes, I didn't apply before it changed, and I should have. Yeah, yeah, Brittany, I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you. Yeah, this is not a joke. I'm not kidding. She has made it much harder to get citizenship in Italy. Much harder. She straddles a really. Speaking of Italy, and I'll talk about Italy for a minute. Italy is a has a precarious place, I think, in the EU and in the whole thing, right? They are some of the people in Maloney's orbit are very Eurosceptic. She is she's kind of gone back and forth, I think. And yeah, she's a right winger. Let's her party is a fascist party, folks. She's been in power for a few years now. There's a lot of economic problems in Italy, and I think in the next election she could be in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. The economic situation in Italy is very poor right now, as it is in many places. It's poor in China, it's poor in Russia, it's poor here, it's poor in a lot of countries, obviously. And these global tariffs, Donald Trump, do not help. They don't help. But in Italy right now, it's a pretty dire economic situation. She's facing a lot of problems there. Her popularity is on a downturn. The Brotherhood of Italy as a political party in Italy is a party on a downturn as well. Tracy Farmer says the referendum going down weakened her. Yeah, that's very true. Tracy Farmer, you're absolutely correct. This is what's happening in Italy, and the reason I talk about Italy, and thank you Tracy and others and Annabelle who raised this in the chat, is because we need to have a global perspective. We need to have a perspective on the African continent as well. And I'm going to do a live in the future talking about some of the African countries where there's a lot of political things going on, a lot of interesting things going on. We need to know more about the African continent, people. It never gets reported on in the news in the United States unless there's a famine or a civil war or a coup. You're not going to get any news on the day to day on the African continent in different African countries. You're not going to get that if you're watching corporate news media in the United States. You need to be watching a number of other sources: Al Jazeera, France 24, DW of Germany, democracynow.org. You can subscribe to Terrell Starr here on Substack. That's a great brother. That brother he lives in Ukraine. African American is a brother who is from here in the United States, who lives in Ukraine and reports on things going on in Ukraine, for black people in Ukraine. He's had guests on from the African continent. You need to subscribe to him. And I'm going to be talking about Africa as well, on the many different countries in the African continent and the elections. As I said earlier, there was an election in Benin, Benin, tonight. Benin, tonight. And we haven't got the results of those yet finalized or announced. But we really need to be focusing on all these places. So I talk about Italy, I talk about Hungary, Germany, all these places, because we need to have a global perspective. Because fascism isn't just in the United States. Fascism is in a number of countries across the world. So we need to, as people living in the United States, have a broader lens, not just what's in front of our noses, not just what our reality is, which is important, but we also need to understand collectively what the global implications are of things. And also it helps us to feel that we're not completely isolated, because a result like the one tonight in Hungary gives people hope here. It really does. And I think, quite frankly, the result tonight, as I get ready to close here, I promise, in Hungary, energizes voters in the United States. And not only does a result like the one in Hungary energize voters in the US, the result in Hungary actually energizes voters here in the United States better than many people in the Democratic Party here have, if we're really being honest about it. We have to vote in overwhelming numbers. The way that people in Hungary did tonight, 6 million voters in Hungary, that may not seem like a lot. That's a massive number. The largest number of voters in nearly 40 years, 40 years almost, 1988. The largest number of that is a significant thing. We need to be absolutely, in this country, in the primaries and in the midterms, we need to swarm these polls with a vengeance. Check your voter registration. Make sure you vote, please. Tell your friends to vote. Get them into it. Educate them. Have a plan to vote, folks. Questions? And yes, thank you. I will, Tanya, I will absolutely do this. I will. I've been in contact with Terrell Starr a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to try to be in contact with him again. So I'll be in contact with him again, and I will try to bring him on. Yes. And we as Black people, particularly, we need to be connecting more with each other on Substack. And I keep saying, please subscribe to Black Voices, Black People on Substack. No matter who you are watching this, whether it's me, whether it's Terrell Starr, whether it's Michael Harriot, I mean, I can go through the whole list of people, Danielle Moody, Dr. Mary Marshall. I can go through I'll put together, I promise I'm going to get this list together so you can subscribe to all these folks. Black Stack, all these people that I'm going to put together in a list. Please subscribe to us, including yours truly. Okay? Please, please, please do that. Our voices here are very important. And we give you things on here that you do not get from other people. I'm telling you. And you will want to be subscribing to us. And we do the work out here. There are a lot of people who bust their tails across the globe. And we are bringing you information and analysis and news and what to do, solutions. I'm a solution-oriented person, solutions-oriented. I talk about voting. I talk about the things that we can do. I do the analysis. Yes, that's good. But I also tell you what you need to do and how to do it. And I'm going to be doing some Substack Lives in the next few weeks that talk about voting in particular states. And if you'd like to have your state talked about and analyzed, and with the how-tos, the ins and outs of voting in your state, please make sure that you put it not in the chat here, but in a response to this live when it ends, or by just putting an to me and telling me that you want which state you want to be covered. So because I'm going to do a lot of in-depth analysis and research and stuff that you need to know. So yes, I will try to get him on. We have a lot of folks who really understand the power of this vote tonight in Hungary. You had at least a turnout it was a huge turnout in Hungary tonight. More than 95% of the vote is in, folks. Thank you, Angie, who writes, please report on geopolitical stuff in Africa, China, Israel, and Russia. Has been making lots of diplomatic economic investments in the African continent. Yes, Angie, decadence, correct, 100% with you. That is absolutely true. China and Russia especially have been doing a lot of things that are really colonialist on the African continent. Yes, I'll be talking about that. I'll also be bringing on people about that too in the future. I am working on that too, absolutely. There's a great book that you might not be able to see behind me, but it is behind me. White Malice. See that book, White Malice? It is written by Susan Williams. She's a white female historian from the United Kingdom, from my home country. And that book is about the recolonization of the African continent. I'm trying to reach it and get it. Let me see if I can. I've talked about this book before. It's on my bookshelf here. Let's see. This is really about what the CIA under Eisenhower and Kennedy and Truman, I think to an extent, did regarding the colonization or the recolonization of Africa, of the African continent. This is White Malice by Susan Williams. This is a good book, a very, very important book if you want to know about how the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States played a big role in recolonizing the African continent under people like JFK, the Dulles brothers, Alan Dulles, the CIA head, John Foster Dulles, who was I think, Secretary of State or something. But this book lays it all out. But yes, Angie, decadence, I will be doing a lot more on that because we need a global perspective. It's so, so important. So I want to thank everybody. Lots of other people. Yes, there's lots of people. Thank you for those of you becoming paid subscribers. Thank you very much for that. It really is appreciated. I'll be giving away some more books in the near future and some movies as well. Might be giving away a movie or two in addition to that. I'll be giving away a copy of I Am Not Your Negro on Blu-ray disc. That is the great documentary from 2016 with James Baldwin, featuring James Baldwin and also Samuel L. Jackson, who does the voicing of of James Baldwin in some of that documentary. It's a documentary directed by Raoul Peck, great filmmaker who also did a documentary called Orwell 2 plus 2 equals 5. That came out in 2025, that documentary. Raoul Peck, by the way, is on Substack, so subscribe to him. So I'll be giving away I Am Not Your Negro about James Baldwin, directed by Raoul Peck. It's a great documentary from 10 years ago now. I gave it away earlier in the year. Paid subscribers, again, have an opportunity to receive that particular disc in the next few weeks. So we've got a lot coming up for paid subscribers. So please become a paid subscriber because you're going to get some real benefits for your money. And in fact, you'll end up getting more out of this as a paid subscriber than you actually are paying. So believe me, this is, I've given away a lot of things this year alone to paid subscribers. And I've not heard any complaints yet from any of the paid subscribers. Uh, Brand new books, all of this stuff. Listen, please become a paid subscriber. Very important. And thank you for those of you who have done that. I really appreciate you very much indeed. So all of these folks, Texas, somebody says Texas. Chadley Foster, I will be talking about Texas. I'm going to be doing this for a number of states. So yes, as I did say, if you wanted to put it in chat, you're welcome. Or after this is over, as a response to it, people have already talked about other states that they want me to cover. But I'm going to do this. And when I do these kinds of presentations, they will be explicitly based on things that I'm getting from the Secretary of State of the particular state that you want me to do. So this is very, very important, right? So Texas, for example, since Charlie's asked me about Texas, I'll be doing the research and I'll be trying to talk to people inside the elections offices in some of these places in Texas. In fact, in 2020, I spoke to the person who was running the Harris County elections in Texas. And it was a great interview. I think it's on the Politicrat podcast. Please listen to the Politicrat podcast, which I do post here on Substack. It's also available on Apple and numerous other podcasting platforms. It's called the Politicrat. It comes out roughly every 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it comes out daily. So please do check on Substack for the podcast. The most recent one I did was yesterday on Eric Swalwell. It's also, again, on Apple and I think Spotify and other podcasting platforms. So please listen to there if you can't listen to it here on Substack. But thank you, Chadley. I will be talking about Texas. This is so important. Please, thank you, Chadley. Chadley writes, love your reporting. Thank you. Thank you, Chadley. Please become a subscriber if you haven't already. Or better yet, please become a paid subscriber, Chadley, and everybody else watching. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for hitting the hearts. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending a part of your Sunday with yours truly here for the second time today. I did a Substack earlier today where I gave away things for paid subscribers. And Central America, there's so many things. Annabelle, thank you very much. Please restack this, Chadley, for everyone watching. When this is available in the next half hour or so or earlier than that, please restack this. Because if you're saying that more people need to be hearing this, well, make sure that your followers, Chadley, and everybody else watching this, make sure your followers do hear this by restacking this to them so that they can hear it. So please do that. I would really appreciate that as well. I want to thank you very much, SDR. Really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for subscribing, for being a paid subscriber, for subscribing. All of you here who have, thank you for that. Please continue to support this platform and other Black voices here. Annabelle, thank you. I'm going to be signing off right now. So to all of you who have joined, Marnie, all of those, Nevada, says Annabelle. Let me just read to see if there are any more states. Annabelle has said Nevada. Charlie said Texas. Let me see here. Dallas County. Oh, Chadley is in Dallas County. Well, we know what happened in Dallas County, don't we, Chadley, last month? We know very well what those Texas Republicans did in Dallas County. We know very well what they did. It rhymes with voter suppression. That's the hint. And Charlie knows what I'm talking about regarding Jasmine Crockett. And I don't know if she's going to still take any legal action at all. I mean, the horse is out of the barn now. The election results are done. Tallarico's the nominee, right? So I don't know what, if anything, the campaign's going to do. But yeah, and Dallas County is the home of the one and only, the only Jasmine Crockett. So, Charlie, thank you for that. Yeah, yeah. Annabelle writes Clark County, Nevada was fucked with, where Vegas is. Yeah, Vegas, yeah. And that's the most populous county, Annabelle. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Clark County is the most populous county in the whole of Nevada. And Annabelle, since you're in that neck of the woods, you can tell me if I'm wrong. That's where Vegas, absolutely, they got screwed about. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that are very suspicious about how these elections went in 2024. Um, we'll see about Swalwell, Chadley. You know, I've listen. I mean, we don't know whether he did this or whether he didn't do this with these horrible things that are being alleged. But if I were him, and maybe you disagree with this, Chadley, and anyone else, if I were him, I would step out of this race for California governor. I would do that. And not only that, I would also resign my seat because this will be a distraction. And you know the Republicans will get on this, which I can understand. In fact, I would do it no matter which party I'm in. The Democrats are calling for this too. In fact, Democrats now in the House are joining that radical nutcase, Anna Paulina Luna, the Republican, in getting a resolution forward that would expel both Tony Gonzalez, the Republican who had an extramarital affair with a staffer who ended up setting herself on fire and dying. That didn't even get as much media coverage as Eric Swalwell's actual allegations. Now, the rape allegations are extremely serious, obviously. But again, I shouldn't even say but. Tony Gonzalez, the Republican in Texas, literally admitted to an extramarital affair with a staffer who set herself on fire and ended her own life. Anna Paulina Luna, as radical and as right wing nutty as she is, extremist as she is going to put on the floor of the House a resolution to expel both Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez. And there are lots of Democrats in the House who are willing to support that. You know? And even though it's not been proven that Eric Swalwell did these things, I can't say that I disagree with that resolution. And I get it. Tony Gonzalez actually admitted to an affair. Swalwell, in his video message, actually did say, I've let my wife down and I apologize to her. Hello, he's basically, not even basically, he's flat out admitting that he had an extramarital affair. And by the way, if you have any affairs with your staffers, that is a breach of the House ethics rules. Hey, you know, listen, people might love Swalwell. I was actually going to vote for him before this revelation came out of these allegations. I was going to vote for him, but I'm not going to now. Even if he stays in the race, I'm not going to vote for him. So, you know, hey, if he happens to stay in the race and he wins and then becomes the nominee in November, because the primary is in June here, if he becomes the nominee in November somehow, of course, well, damn, I'm going to vote for him. But right now, I would want, he needs to leave. I mean, again, I know innocent until proven guilty. I get that. And I'm an attorney saying this. But these allegations, they need to be, listen, this stuff needs to be investigated. New York is doing an investigation on Eric Swalwell and these allegations, the rape allegations for April of 2024 when he was in New York. So they are being investigated. I think the House needs to do an investigation. I'm sure the Republicans will. I think it needs to happen. But the one thing is, the Democrats will always call for their own to go faster than the Republicans will call for their own to go. That we know, folks, right? We know that the Democratic Party will call for its own to go quicker than the Republican Party will. Look at Al Franken. I talked about this yesterday on the Politicrat podcast. Al Franken, those allegations were things that were happening even before he was in the Senate. They weren't proven, right? But every Democrat in the Senate, out of here, Al, you got to go. And Al Franken, I played a portion of his resignation speech from December of 2017 in yesterday's Politicrat podcast. Al Franken got up there on the Senate floor, and what did he do? He gave his resignation speech. And he even cited Donald Trump. The irony of me leaving and Donald Trump in 2017 in the White House with openly admitting what he did to women. Access Hollywood tape. Still being in the White House. And here he is now in the White House. And Al Franken's still gone. Anyway, I could go on and on with this. Smarty Marty asks, will you talk about other California Democratic governor candidates? I will. I will be doing that, Smarty Marty. Thank you for the question. Thank you, Chadley, for becoming a paid subscriber. That's truly appreciated. When you do that, you will see the benefits. I promise you. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to everybody. Please take care of yourselves. Oh my goodness me. Yes, they did the dirty on Jasmine. They sure did, Smarty. A lot of things, very, very nasty things that these Republicans do. Like in Virginia, where they are sending people notes. Now, President Obama, and I'm going to put this on my Substack. I was supposed to do it earlier. He did an ad, 2 or 3 video ads saying vote yes for fair elections in Virginia. He did that explicitly. There's also campaign material out there with his face on it saying vote yes in Virginia. Vote yes. I play the ad on my Politicrat Substack, Politicrat podcast, I'm sorry. I play the ad for that almost every episode to remind people in Virginia that they must vote yes for fair elections no later than April the 21st. Early voting is going on now. But the nasty things that Republicans are doing right now, even though President Obama has released ad after ad saying vote yes, the Republicans have put out flyers and emails with President Obama's face on it, with vote no next to it. Vote no on fair elections. Even though Obama has actual ads out there where he's saying vote yes. This is designed to stir confusion in the electorate, stir division in the black community and confusion in it. So you need to tell everybody in Virginia to vote yes. Go on your Substack now and tell people in Virginia to vote yes on fair elections. Very important, folks. Thank you very much. Annabelle says lunatic. Yeah, she sure is. Thank you very much, everyone. I've got lots more to tell you over the next few days with what's going on. Okay, and as quite rightly said by Don, yeah, that was a USO comedy skit. Exactly. Don writes, it was a comedy skit. Yeah, he got sacked. He resigned over that, Don, and everyone else watching. Literally a comedy skit on a USO tour in the Far East someplace, and Franken had his hands like this over a woman who was sleeping. His hands were not even touching her breasts. His hands were literally away from her breasts. His hands were over her breast, but his hands did not touch her breast at all. And it was done as a skit. Now, you still may still have some objections to that, but that was really part of why he got fired or he resigned. There were other women who made some allegations against him as well, such as he kissed them in an elevator or something of that nature. Still, it's a serious allegation. I'm not diminishing any of it. All I'm saying is there's a difference between a skit on a USO tour where he's not touching someone and what Eric Swalwell is being accused of. There's a huge freaking difference between them, right? There's a difference between Al Franken, right, and Eric Swalwell. Yeah, and Al Franken lost his job. And if Al Franken can lose his job for that, I think, listen, Eric Swalwell, he's not going to be long for this California governor's race. And I'll talk about the California governor's race in detail on another Substack Live for those who are interested in that. Yeah, the right wing are indeed running ads in Virginia that are lying about Obama and having him tell you vote no. He's not in, and he has run so many ads saying vote yes. And I think Obama should say something about this. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know if he said it on social media, but this is really true. This is designed to confuse voters in Virginia. And I do hope that the PA apparatus, the public address apparatus, the PR apparatus in Virginia is damn good for the Democrats. They had better keep hammering this home about voting yes. It's so important. Yeah, there was a woman in the skit, Don. I don't remember her name either. I don't know if she was actually sleeping in the skit either, or if she was pretending to. I think that's neither here nor there. My overall point is, and you know this, Don, because you've also mentioned it in the chat. My overall point is that this is a USO skit, and his hands were not touching her breasts at all. And he wasn't even in politics. Again, that may be here or there for some people about whether he's in politics or not, because I agree. He shouldn't be, if he is groping someone, actually groping someone, it doesn't matter whether he's in office or in power or politics or not. No man should be groping anyone. Same thing, vice versa, right? So, I understand that part, but I'm just saying he was not even in politics when most of these allegations were made. Most of these allegations center on things where when he was not a senator. I think one of them may have centered on it when he was, but most of these others, like there were three or four other women who said that he did these things to them or alleged it, but many of them were he was not in politics at all. Some of them were he was not in politics, but he's gone. Progressive senator, gone. And we're now in a place where I think, listen, Eric Swalwell needs to move on. I think he does. But again, innocent until proven guilty. These are allegations. They're extremely serious. I believe these women, by the way, for the record. I believe them. They're not going to sit there and put their lives on the line and come out and say these things, and they're not true. They're not. No one's going to go, yeah, I mean, that's just me. You may feel differently, but that's how I feel about it. Anyway, I want to thank you again. Yeah, it was. Chadley, listen, Eric Swalwell did this to himself, though. Chadley writes, this sucks, Chadley writes, because Swalwell was one of the loudest voices against Trump. Yeah, thou dost protest too much. I mean, yeah, it's sad, Chadley, but, I hear you. And I know you're a fan of Swalwell because you said it in the chat earlier. But the bottom line is that if this is true, he made his bed. Pardon the pun, and I don't mean that as a pun really at all. No pun intended. And now he's going to have to lie in it if he did what he has been alleged to have done. And he brought it on himself. The Republicans did not tell these women to go forward. Yeah, it was, you're right, Smarty Marty. Leanne Tweeden. Yeah, was the one who claimed that, yeah, Frank and Force will be kissed. That's very true. That's the name. I forgot the name. I think there was another person who did it too. But Leanne Tweeden was the one. And there was all allegations about whether the Republicans put her up to it and she has connections to the Republicans or may, But again, the thing is, and listen, the Republicans are dastardly. But the thing is, whether she has any connection to the Republicans or not, and whether she's a Republican or not, if he in fact did this, he's got to pay the piper for it. We don't know if he actually did this. He said, she said, right? I don't know whether Leanne Tweeden suffered that kind of abuse and assault from Anne Franken or not. I don't know whether the woman who is making the allegations she has against Eric Swalwell actually did was assaulted sexually or abused or raped or not. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I do believe her. And I don't think she would bring forth the specificity and detail that she did to CNN and to the San Francisco Chronicle if this didn't happen to her. And it's so interesting. One last thing before I do go. It was so interesting because Pamela Brown of CNN asked her, did you say no during the time? And I'm like, what kind of a question is that to ask of a rape victim, a survivor? Did you say no? I mean, that sounded like the 1970s all over again. A woman is not required to say no. And in this particular case, this particular woman making these allegations was drunk as a skunk. I mean, she talked about how she was completely out of it. She didn't remember anything except for when she woke up the next morning and felt, I'm not going to get graphic here, but felt the effects of being penetrated. And she was wondering how this happened and realizing she was in in his hotel room. That's what she alleges. And for Pamela Brown, knowing that this woman was drunk, for Pamela Brown of CNN, I didn't say this before, but I'll say it here to close. For Pamela Brown of CNN to ask, and I put the audio of this on the podcast episode yesterday, on Saturday's edition, April 11th edition of the Politicrat podcast. I played the whole 6 minute plus audio. And Pamela Brown, during that audio, which is also available somewhere on YouTube, you can find it. But I put it in the podcast near the beginning of the episode yesterday that I did on the Politicrat podcast, which is here on Substack, April 11th edition, yesterday. And Pamela Brown, and I think it's the first 10 minutes of the podcast episode, literally says and asks this alleged rape victim, literally asked her, "Did you say no? While he's on top of you, did you say no?" And she actually answers, "Yes, I did say no." But damn, Pamela Brown, come on. What kind of question is that for you to ask someone who said that she was raped? Whether she said no or not, quite frankly, is immaterial. This is not 18th century or 17th century England or 17th century USA. How dare that? I'm sorry, I didn't talk about that yesterday. I should have, but I'll talk about it in a few. But I want to say for the record here, how dare Pamela Brown ask a woman who said that she was raped whether she said no? What? What? Man, it ain't that some shit? And people would have been outraged if a male reporter, had asked that question. Outraged. You would have heard that for days. Pamela Brown, as a white woman asking that question up, no one says shit. Smarty Marty, sad when another woman tries to discredit another woman's trauma or abuse. Yeah. It's sad when a man does it too. But I hear what you're saying, Smarty Marty. Yes, I agree with you. But it's sad when a man discredits or tries to discredit a woman's trauma or abuse. It's sad when anyone, discredits a man's trauma or abuse. We're living in a society that still continues to laugh when men say that they got abused, and many men don't even come forward with it because they fear and they know they're going to get laughed out of the police precinct. This woman was reluctant to come forward because she said in the San Francisco Chronicle that nobody would believe her against a powerful man like Eric Swalwell. And that's the truth. Patriarchy, says Annabelle. Yep, 100%. Thank you, Tanya of the 92%. Please do. Yesterday, I recorded that episode of the podcast, of the Politicrat podcast. It's on Substack. It's on Apple. It's called, let me see if I can remember it from memory. There are many different sides to alleged rapists, and that includes Eric Swalwell. That's literally the title of yesterday's Politicrat podcast. The Politicrat. That is my podcast. I did a full podcast episode on Eric Swalwell and these allegations. I play audio. I play a number of different reports. I mean, please go and listen to that. There really was so much in the news this week, writes Tanya. I totally agree with you. Yeah, 5 days ago, a week ago, it was last Sunday. Last Sunday or Monday. It was last Monday, I think. Last Monday or Tuesday. You're right. 5 days ago, Tanya. You're absolutely right. She writes, wasn't it 5 days ago when a civilization was threatened to end? This is all madness. Yeah. Everything is compressed. And in dictatorships or pseudo-dictatorships and authoritarian dictatorships, you have this compression of time. There's so much going on. Your brain really can't catch up with it. And that's done deliberately to flood the zone, as that despicable man, Steve Bannon, says. We'll see what happens. By the way, I want to remind you of one other thing. Thank you. I know it's gone a bit long. Here's the one thing I want to remind you of. Pam Bondi was supposed to testify on April 14th. That would be this coming Tuesday. She says she's not going to. The Democrats intend to hold her in contempt. April 14th is also significant for this coming Tuesday. Why? Because it's the date that the House Democrats in the Oversight Committee are supposed to be in Palm Beach, Florida, having a shadow hearing on the Epstein files in Palm Beach, Florida. Seriously. And who's going to be testifying at that shadow hearing, or who's scheduled to testify in that April 14th, 2026 shadow hearing? Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these rich men who did these evil things to these women when they were children. Now, that information I've just given you about the April 14th shadow hearing in Palm Springs, Florida, came from where? And Palm Beach, Florida. I'm sorry. Palm Beach, Florida came from where? Came from a February 11th, 2026 press release issued by the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, the Democrat Robert Garcia. I'll put the press release out there again on Substack, on my Substack, right after this is over. Keep an eye out for that. Lots of things happening this week. This whole thing with Melania last week. Lots going on, folks. Keep an eye on things. Make sure you vote. Register to vote. Check your voter registration. Tell Virginia to vote yes for fair elections. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Please be a paid subscriber. Please do that. You have a lot of good benefits in doing that. I'm one of the very few people on here giving things away. I might be the only person on Substack who gives away books on a regular basis here. On a regular basis. So your paid subscription really does count for something, plus additional benefits and things that you will be getting. Be a subscriber here, please, on this Substack. Thank you so very much for your time. It is Sunday evening. Please enjoy the rest of your Sunday and have a great week. I'll see you again next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.